Homer, it's not only NASA that's dying and sputtering, it's me too.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Tom. I'm an honorary doctor. Maybe I can help you out.
You're an honorary doctor?
Doctor of Literature at Marshall University. They ignored the rest of my resume, and they liked some of the books I wrote.
Now, Homer, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in West Virginia, southern West Virginia, a little town of Coalwood, in the coal fields of West by God, Virginia, back in the 19...
I like that a lot. You don't have the
not original.
You don't. Well, that's okay. You don't have that accent. God,
the Chuck Yeager accent.
The Chuck Yeager.
I can put it on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure.
Well, this is Ralph Basham. I grew up south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you're in part of the tri-state area there. They would refer to you where I was from as hill people.
Yeah, well, I guess they refer to where I'm from, mountaineers or something like that. But by the way, we had a lot of Pennsylvanians live in Coalwood. The company that owned Coalwood also owned a couple of towns up in Pennsylvania, so they shipped some Pennsylvanians down our way, which I think it kind of leveled out my accent a little bit.
So you lived in a company town?
Very much a company town. Coalwood was one of the last pure company towns. The company owned every house, every tree, every road, every fence, every store. In order to live in Coalwood, you had to work for the company. That was the rule, or be the wife of a coal miner, except for the preacher. The church was a company church, but the preacher was hired on a 3-year contract, so we used to change our religion every 3 years. We used to laugh and say we got the low-bid religion.
What company,
you probably did.
What company was it? Was it Consolidated Coal?
Well, Consolidated Coal at one time, when I was raised there, it was Olga Coal Company, which was owned by Youngstown Sheet and Tube up in Ohio. So the Ohioans sent down a manager to kind of keep an eye on us unruly West Virginians. And
well, there you go. Where did it all start, Homer, with you and science fiction? Was it an inspiration from some writer? What was the beginning?
Well, I've only recently started writing science fiction, and it's this trilogy that I wrote for HarperCollins, mainly because the governor of Alabama, who also took his eye off the ball for a second, appointed me to be on the board of the Space and Rocket Center, which includes Space Camp. So when I went over there and saw what those kids were reading, it was mostly fantasy stuff, the Harry Potter stuff,
which
I think is a bunch of crap. And because you just wave a wand and things happen, and I don't like that. I like stories about where there's real possibilities if you're going to set it in the future, and you use some real engineering and real science. So I talked to HarperCollins, and they said, "Okay, go for it, Homer." So I wrote this young adult sci-fi series called the Helium 3 series that's set on the moon 100 years in the future, and real stuff occurs there. I mean, using real science, and I'm happy to let you know that they've been pretty popular. Parents, grandparents, teachers, they like to get them for their kids, and 10 through 18 is about the age group that I'm writing for there.
10 through 18, okay. Now, Homer Hickam, our special guest, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Crater Trueblood and the Lunar Rescue Company. You took a hell of a chance, when you let them make a movie out of your Rocket Boys book, because they can grab a book and destroy it before it gets to the screen. So Universal Studios is the outfit that brought it out, but the director was Joe Johnston, who I knew about him. He had done Rocketeer, and he had done ultimately he's done a lot of things like Captain America and so on. And I also knew he worked on Star Wars. So I kind of trusted him. Yeah. And I trusted Chuck Gordon, who had done Field of Dreams. He was the producer. So between the two of them and the fact that they let me be on set almost every day that it was filmed. And plus the fact Universal paid me a lot of money. I put all that together. Sure.
I was willing to let them make a movie out of it.
Yeah, Homer, it's interesting because, Dennis Lehane, the Bostonian, writes great books, Mystic River being one of them, Gone, Baby Gone, just a tremendous writer himself. And I was talking to him, I said, that must be pretty much the same thing you just described. He was on set, and they paid him a lot of money to be there and all the rest of it. And I said, what's the downside to being the writer of the book and being on set? And he said,
of all the people that are there, you're the last one that's going to get a date from it. Is the screenwriter?
Well, I had my wife with me most of the
Well, that's good. Well, then that's good.
But writers are universally disliked by Hollywood in general, and they don't like to have you on set. But for some reason, Chuck and Joe took a liking to me, and so they let me be on set. I hung out with Laura Dern in her trailer a lot, and
I love Laura Dern.
That almost got kicked me off the set because she was trying to enlarge her role, and I didn't see anything wrong with that. Nothing. I could not come up with anything that that would make me not want Laura to have more of a role. So I got talked to sternly, and then I returned the next day and kept doing what I do.
And you said, "Oh well, I'm doing the best I can, Laura. Everything's good. Everything is
well,
good."
You know, this is a movie about my family, and of course that
right.
That worried me. I'm making light of it, but it really did worry me that, and especially the tendency toward West Virginia stereotypes. And it would have been very easy. As a matter of fact, the first script came in. I told my wife that I was going to have to go up to West Virginia and apologize to everybody in the state. It was that bad. I mean, nobody had teeth, and shoes seemed to be in real short supply. And it's like, but these people, they're working coal miners. They're not starving. This is not how green was my valley. You know, it's,
right.
This is coal fields in the 1950s. Everybody had a job. They worked really hard. That was the point. But they tended to be a little insular. And if you grew up there, the likelihood of getting out and going somewhere else, well, you didn't have a lot of role models in that regard. So that's what really made it into the story it was.
I should mention, by the way, we are talking about Homer's book, Rocket Boys. The film's called October Sky. It's a big hit movie, October Sky. What'd you think of Jake Gyllenhaal as you?
You know, I love Jake. Jake was only 16 when we filmed that movie, and he... the other boys who played the Rocket Boys were older. Actually, they were in their 20s, and so this was filmed up around Knoxville, Tennessee area, and so every night they were down at the local Kmart, you know, hanging out with the girls. And poor Jake had to go back to a hotel with his mother.
Oh, yeah.
So if he looked stressed in that movie, it was not acting. He was pretty stressed about the whole thing, but I thought he did a great job.
Homer, do you mind taking a call?
No.
Excellent. Andy, who's our caller?
Mike from Blaine.
Mike from Blaine. Homer Hickam. Homer, this is Mike from Blaine. Does a lot of research, Homer, so be ready.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Hickam. How you doing today?
Can he hear him at all?
I can't hear him.
Mike, could you speak up a little bit?
It was very quiet.
Hi, Mr. Hickam. How you doing today?
That's better.
I'm fine. Like, how are you?
There we go.
I'm pretty good, and I was just wondering because I did a little bit of research on you, and about NASA. I have a question about that because you worked on the space lab and stuff. Is it true that they lost all the plans for the Saturn rockets and stuff?
I am happy to tell you it is not true. As a matter of fact, we've got several Saturn V F1 engines sitting around here in Huntsville where I live now, and the engineers out there have retro-engineered it. They've taken them apart and put them back together again. So we could build one if we wanted to, but we probably ought to build a better engine now using modern techniques.
I got to point something out, that Huntsville is known for two things. It's known for rocket science and for one of the biggest prisons in the United States.
Now, slight correction, that's the Huntsville in Texas.
I thought Huntsville, Alabama wasn't. Yeah, Huntsville, Alabama is known for its rocket science, though.
Yeah, well, it's known for two things. It's called Rocket City, USA. This is where Werner von Braun and his team settled, and they built the big Saturn V. And then, of course, the fact that I live there.
Well, there's a there's a TV show based on Huntsville, Alabama, too, isn't there?
Well, Space Camp is here.
Space Camp, that's right. Space Camp. Yeah, that's right. You said that already, Homer.
I said that, yeah.
But there's not a prison in Huntsville, Alabama, too.
A lot of teenagers think that their houses are prisons, but other than that, no. You got to realize Huntsville is very much a family town. I mean, every other person is an engineer, and the other person in between wants to be an engineer. So it can tend to be a little bit dull, and the kids here, it's kind of a company town in a lot of ways, just like Coalwood.
Oh, here we go. There's a prison 10 miles west of Huntsville.
See? Homer?
Oh, wait, you're right.
Homer.
I forgot about that.
Now you know why I'm the host, brother.
It opened in 1984, and it's not that huge, though.
That's right, and it's another county, I'm pretty sure. So.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, you dodged that bullet.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Is Mike still with us?
Yep.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
This one isn't NASA related, but about when you wrote Torpedo Junction, is that I didn't know about any of that stuff. Could you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yes, God bless you, Mike, by the way, for bringing up this book called Torpedo Junction. It was the story of the U-boats who operated along the East Coast during World War II. I did 15 years of research on that, and it was a national military history bestseller, and it's still in print since 1989. So we had over 300 of our ships sunk during an 8-month period in 1942. And about I think it was 8 German U-boats were sunk, and I ended up diving on a couple of those U-boats to do my research. So I was happy to unveil that story, which was almost completely unknown until I got around to writing that book.
Did you go down to in Chicago, the Museum of Science and Industry, and look at that U-boat?
Yeah, that's a Type 9. That's a Type 9 U-boat, and U-505. And most of the U-boats that came over here were Type 7s. They were a little bit smaller than that. There were a couple of 9s, though, also. Yeah, I did. I took a tour of that. There's also a Type 7 that's been dragged up on the beach and made into a monument over in Flensburg, Germany. So I spent a lot of time messing inside of it, too.
I love it. That must have been fascinating.
It was. It really was. I was working for NASA at that time, but I was writing for magazines like Scuba Diver and Skin Diver and that kind of thing. And I was asked by Scuba Diving magazine to go up to North Carolina and dive on what they thought might be a German U-boat, and it turned out to be the U-352. And but there was nothing. Nobody had ever written anything about it. So I started doing all that research, and that's the way that happened. I'm kind of an eclectic writer, guys. You know, I'm known for Rocket Boys. That's the one I'm going to be forever known for. I know that. But I was happy to bring that story out about Torpedo Junction, and then written a whole bunch of other stuff since then. You know, but this latest series, young adult sci-fi. That was a lot of fun to write. It really was, and I hope the young people take it to heart.
Don't you think that Mike from Blaine should change his name to Crater Trueblood?
I think if I could change my name to Crater Trueblood, I would do it in a heartbeat. Isn't that a great name?
It is a great name.
So, what's your name? My name's Crater Trueblood. Well, you're interesting, right there.
No, Mike, what do you think of that idea?
I think it sounds like a cool plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, our question comes from Crater Trueblood from Blaine. You'd just be known as Crater from Blaine.
Well, he could probably just be known as Crater, and people would know.
Yeah, then there would. Yeah, Mike from Blaine. Yeah, the from Blaine part wouldn't be necessary. Just be Crater. Tell us about Crater Trueblood and the Lunar Rescue Company, if you would, Homer.
Yeah, Crater is a. When we first meet Crater, he in the first novel, which is titled Crater, of all things. He is a 14-year-old, and he works in the helium-3 mines on the moon. This is in the 22nd century, 100 years from now. And he's worked in those mines. He lives in a coal or a mining town very similar to Coalwood. And there's no child labor laws on the moon, so he lives a pretty rough life. He's an orphan. And so we meet him there, and we learn all about his adventures out on what they call the scrapes, and ultimately a helium-3 convoy all the way across the moon while a war breaks out between the Earth and the moon. The Earth really wants to get that helium-3, which, by the way, is a real isotope on the moon. That's the perfect fuel for a fusion reactor, so I didn't make that up. And that's followed by Crescent being a bioengineered warrior female, the only one of her species that Crater meets during the war. And
that's book 2,
learn all about her. And then finally this one, Crater Trueblood and the Lunar Rescue Company, where his girlfriend, the richest woman on the moon, is kidnapped and carried off, and Crater has to go after her and rescue her. And while he's doing that, he also gets around to rescuing the entire Earth. So that's what they're about.
What do you think of that, Mike from Blaine? Crater from Blaine.
Sounds like an interesting book. Hey, when you write those, do you have to find out how much technical jargon? Is there you put too much or too little in and it gets confusing for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to be careful about that. I wrote them. I mean, I really did write them with the idea of not only telling an interesting story, but also sneaking in some real science and real engineering. Like I said, I'd like for kids to know how some of these things really work, rather than just Harry Potter waves a wand and everything's good.
Well, just calling it helium-3.
Technical when I write them.
What'd you say, Andy?
Just calling it helium-3 is a step up from, for example, unobtainium. It's like, really?
Yeah, there really is helium-3.
Yeah.
That's truly an isotope that the solar wind has deposited on the moon over millennia, and when we have fusion reactors, right now we don't have any, but someday we will, and when we do, helium-3 will be the perfect fuel for them, and we'll go after it.
See, what do you think of that crater from Blaine?
I think hopefully we get back to the moon soon.
Yeah, well.
What do you think about the claiming land on the moon? Because you wrote an article about that.
About what? I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't hear that.
Claiming land on the moon.
Oh, well, I just did that to stir the pot. I'd like to do that every once in a while. I wrote an editorial about that we should claim all of the Apollo landing sites as American territory.
I like it.
Just to hear the outrage.
I like it.
The whining that went on after that. But it's like, well, why not, we paid a lot of money for it, so I don't want the Chinese to go up there and send a robot tank, rolling over and knock over the Apollo 11 lander or anything like that. So.
Right. That makes sense. Is that everything, Mike?
Yep, that's everything. Thanks. It's been an honor to speak to you, Mr. Hickam.
Well, same here, Mike. I really do appreciate your questions, buddy.
Yeah, he asks great questions.
He did.
No question. He does a lot of research. A very smart kid, no doubt about it. Homer Hickam. The latest book is called Crater Trueblood and the Lunar Rescue Company. It's been terrific. You've been a terrific guest. Very, very interesting, and we appreciate your time, sir.
I appreciate your time as well. And anytime, give me a call.
We will definitely do that.
Okay.
Thanks very much.